Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Blueprints and Banter. I am your host, Steve Kona, and this is the official podcast of ABC Florida Gulf Coast Chapter, and I am joined by the chairman of the board, David Tercios. David, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. As Steve said, my name is David Tercios. I am the vice president of Tampa operations for the Ginyard Company, and I have the proud honor of being the chairman of the Florida Gulf Coast Chapter for 2024.
And we appreciate you always being my wingman on this. Maybe one day we'll have somebody else here to step up our game a little bit.
Why break a broken thing?
That's right.
Whatever the saying
Exactly.
is.
It's already broke, so why fix it?
There you go.
So today, we're going to talk about our legislative and how we go about creating our legislative ideas, what we need to do this legislative session, this election year. We have a whole bunch of things to talk about, but first, let's talk about our sponsors.
Yeah, before we get into all that good stuff, as always, we want to give a great big thank you to our diamond level sponsors for 2024. Those companies are Callista Cabinets, Ginyard Company, Milwaukee Tools, and Piper Fire. We greatly appreciate your financial support, which allows us to bring content like this to our members.
Yep, and we couldn't do it without them, so many thanks to them. Now, the last episode of Blueprints and Banter, we had
Our most watched episode.
Our most watched episode. We have gotten calls and emails about all of the
TikTok
amazing
campaign,
things and how excited people were that we had Carol Bowen on, and it was so informational that we decided that we're going to bring her back this episode. So please welcome back Carol Bowen, ABC of Florida, Chief Lobbyist, where we're going to talk about all things, how we create our legislative agenda, what these elections are all about, and we're happy to have Carol. Carol, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, team. Thanks for having me back. I'm going to capture that lead in, and during my annual review, we're just going to hit that. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity. And for those listening, the millions of people tuning in, thanks so much for being here with us today. We appreciate it.
Hey, Carol, for those of you that may have missed that last episode, can you quickly just introduce yourself and what your role is with ABC of Florida, please?
Sure. Carol Bowen. I'm the Chief Lobbyist for ABC of Florida. I've been with you all in some capacity since about 2007, but in this role since 2017. It's a great pleasure and honor to work on your behalf. Thank you for letting me do it.
Thank you.
Now, so last episode, if folks remember, we talked about everything that we accomplished as an industry in Tallahassee. But now we have to kind of refocus and reset and kind of start from scratch, because not only do we have to come up with new ideas to get passed, but we also are going to have new leadership, and we're going to have elections in the process, and people might look differently this time around when the session starts again. So Carol, let's talk about first the importance of planning, and planning for us will start in July, and you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So first of all, ABC, kudos to you all. You do something different than many other organizations. You really are member-driven, member-focused. So if people are kind of catching on to this process or jumping in for the first time, it's not me or the lobby team that determines what we fight for, right? It comes from our members, and it starts at the summer convention, which is this July. And I know we'll be putting the details up, but any active member of ABC has the opportunity to come and throw an idea up on the wall. And through a variety of ways and through an all-day session, we take everybody's idea, we listen, we hear them out, we whittle it down to the top 3, top 5 items of interest that we then take to Tallahassee and turn into bills and pass on your behalf. And the good news is you all have done such a great job in formulating these ideas. We've had a ton of success in the last few years. We've either passed in its entirety or passed portions of every piece of legislation you have put on the table. So that is a plea from me. We need new ideas, and we need big ideas. But I would say that the legislature also wants the ideas from you. I get calls all the time saying, hey, what are you guys working on, and can I sponsor? So please join us in July. It's imperative that you do.
Yeah, great.
So this event that you're talking about is ABC of Florida Convention. It's going to be from July 18th to July 20th at the Trade Winds in St. Pete.
Gulf Coast, baby.
That's right, Florida Gulf Coast.
Always.
And at this event, we have our planning conference. And the planning conference is what you just alluded to, where people are invited to bring their ideas. Leading up to the planning conference, though, we ask for our members' help in setting the agenda. And so in order for members to do so, we have set up a website, floridavoting.org, where members can go on there and talk about what issues they would like discussed at the planning conference. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's some pre-selected questions. I think there's probably an opportunity at the end, tell us what we missed. But this is going to help set the stage for how the discussion in July will take place. So make sure to go on and register your opinion on what you want us focusing on in Tallahassee.
Yeah, we're going to send this link out to all of the membership, because the more information that we get in this survey, the easier it is to kind of come up with a game plan. Now, Carol, do you want to talk about like the categories that we kind of, look at when we're looking at this survey?
We tend to start big, right? We're looking at workforce education, so apprenticeship, career and technical education, internships, all that, entrepreneurship, all of the ships that fall under that umbrella. We know the skilled worker shortage we need to continue to focus on, but how we do that would fall under that umbrella. Building regulations and the regulatory process is always a big one. Permitting, plan review, streamlining, expediting. We typically do have some effort to counteract a local government initiative. So there's typically a preemption category. Someone's overstepped or is doing something that's making it impossible for our licensed contractors to do work in Florida. So we step in there. And then sometimes we have, miscellaneous ones. When people think of ABC, they think commercial, but affordable housing is a huge topic, and many of our members build in that space. So if there's ways to improve in that area, that I would say that would probably be another umbrella. And then we didn't tackle this in the last one, and I apologize, but for this session, we had our first appropriation request ever. So do we want to revisit that for 2025? Is there additional funding, or are there additional funding requests to be made? But those are probably the bigger umbrella topic areas that you'll see.
Yep. And every member can go on and go to floridavoting.org, take the survey. If you can't make the trade winds, which you should, because not only do we have our planning session, but it's a good time. It's a good time to network with members. But we also bring in political elected officials, politicians. You want to talk about that a little bit, Carol? We've had some success of bringing in some high-profile folks.
It's one of the best conferences that we do. If you're worried about kind of having to show up in that suit and tie, this is not that vibe. It's very casual. We're sitting with our friends this past session, or this past summer. We had speaker Paul Renner spend about 2.5 hours with us, and he went and spoke to each of these individual breakout sessions we were holding. Loved it, kind of got immersed in it. And so you never know who you're going to see. We do take elected officials from all over the state, but Steve and David, typically we do get a lot of friends from your area. Ton of high profile people running for office this session, or this election cycle, I should say. So I'm sure we'll have some really good guests, but state Senate, state House, cabinet members, people running for office that we know maybe for the first time, those will be in the room with us, helping us through the process.
Yeah, and I could tell you that the election season is already in full swing. So let's talk about the upcoming elections and what ABC has already done, what we're doing. Carol, do you want to talk about what we did with Senator Scott? I know he is running for re-election. ABC of Florida and all of the chapters have endorsed Senator Scott for re-election, but we've done some incredible events for him around the state.
So Senator Scott, we've had a long time experience with him, a relationship with him. He's on for re-election. Senator Rubio is not up this cycle. He's up again, I believe, in 2 years. We've known the senator since he was governor, and he just completely understands the importance of the industry and how we help drive Florida's economy and help it thrive. And so pleased to be an early re-endorser of his election cycle. Loved to get that call from him. Happy to lend our support support. And then we've been part of a few collaborative events, Builders for Rick Scott, with the transportation builders, residential builders, and some of the smaller subcontractor groups. But really, anybody that helps build Florida is in lockstep from our end for Senator Rick Scott, and we're happy to do it.
Yeah, and one of the things that we have available, especially now during this election season, is if any of our members are interested in hosting elected officials during this time, reach out to the chapter office. We're happy to put you on the list, and if somebody wants to come and do an interview or a tour of your office or tour of your job site, we're happy to help facilitate that. And a shout out to our friends at Sims Crane, who put on an amazing event for Senator Scott in Tampa a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, so just two things real quick. So talking about the ABC Florida Convention event, for any member who wants to sign up for that event, registration is now open. You can go to abcflorida.com to do so. As Carol mentioned, it is a very relaxed event. It's actually a family-friendly event. Many members will bring their families, and while we're in the meetings doing the heavy lifting, our families will be at the beach or poolside or just having a good old time. Carol, you also talked about how we have had a long relationship with now Senator Scott, and I think that's a good segue to talk about the efforts that we do as an association to build these relationships with elected officials. You mentioned Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio actually announced he declared running for Senate at an ABC Florida Gulf Coast lunch, however many years ago that was. So part of the process that you spearhead, one of your passions is having these interviews with the elected officials, and we do most of those events at our ABC Gulf Coast office. You want to talk about that process?
Yeah.
and the tedious process that is?
Yeah,
that can be
super tedious, but super rewarding for
important.
For the membership, and important. It's my job, and it's our job as a board, as an industry, to get to know the people who represent us all over the state. Here in the Gulf Coast, it's my job to make sure that every candidate running for office comes through our office, and we tell them the importance of our industry. And Carol, you've been part of candidate interviews for a long time. Do you want to talk about how important it is, not only obviously in the Gulf Coast, because we do such an amazing job of that, but how other folks do it throughout the state?
I always enjoy being a guest on a show where people show such humility, Steve. It's my favorite thing to do. Yes, Gulf Coast is one of the best. Listen, I think if you look at the approach of ABC, it's a three-step process to building these relationships. You participate in the candidate screening, and then you go to the legislative planning conference, and then you go to Tallahassee Legislative Conference. At that point, you will have seen these people 3 times, and you're continuing to tell them the story of you, your company, the industry, and why it matters. There are some entertaining stories we probably can't share on a podcast of things you learn during candidate screenings, but a lot of people come in with preconceived notions of what it will or won't be like, and what level of honesty you'll get from the candidates. It's where we first get to see how people feel about construction and whether they're sort of saying what they think we want to hear or whether they fully grasp the importance of what our members do. It's a not to be missed experience. It can be tedious, David, to your point, because you're going one right after the other, but the people you're going to want to work with start to show themselves pretty quickly, and that to me is a rewarding process for sure.
Yeah, and sorry, Dave, and just to kind of highlight what that kind of looks like and to give an example, when you think about somebody like Marco Rubio, who was a local elected official who, ABC started a relationship with him in Miami, later becomes a state rep. We nourish that relationship. He becomes a Speaker of the House and then a U.S. Senator. The process of these folks being able to continue to deliver for ABC members, but it starts at that very first time that they run for office, and that's where we try to get in on the ground floor, and I think it works out well for us.
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. Is those candidate interviews? So many of them are first time we get a chance to speak with them. As Carol mentioned, we get a chance to know what their understanding is of the construction industry, and then we also get a chance to share with them the things that we find are important and what our efforts at ABC are. We do that. We start that at the candidate interviews, and then obviously if they get to Tallahassee, Carol has a lot more time that she spends with them to help that whole process. So any ABC member who would like to participate in this process. And I've been sitting in interviews for I don't know how many years now, but it's a part of the process that I really enjoy. I encourage all ABC members to do so. To be part of that process, I encourage you to reach out to your local ABC chapter, find out when those interviews are, and then ask to sit in on them. And we'll be having probably 3 different ones. Our footprint of the Florida Gulf Coast chapter is so large that we cover from Gainesville down to Naples. So we can't expect all these candidates to come to our office in Tampa. So
yeah, I mean, our plan is to have interviews in Tampa, interviews in Pinellas, interviews in Sarasota, and interviews in Fort Myers. So we cover the whole Gulf Coast and a whole gamut of elected officials that we have to meet with during this particular time. One thing I do want to mention, and Carol can kind of stress the importance of this, we have plenty of members who are politically active as well, and we want to know about those relationships. So if you are an ABC member and you have great relationships with elected officials, let us know. And Carol, you want to talk about that a little bit? Because there's some that, sometimes we don't know we have an in when we really do.
So those are our key contacts, and it becomes incredibly important in those final hours, final minutes of session when we need maybe to get through to somebody who is sick of listening to me. We reach out to a member and say, hey, you go to church with this guy, your family, you're in school together, whatever that, your cousins, that has happened before, whatever that relationship is, we need you to shoot them a text or we need you to make a call. And so any relationship, we can figure out how strong it is on our end, but definitely let us know. Let your chapter leadership know, or your legislative committee, because no relationship is too small to have a big impact. Steve, quick question, because I'm not sure I actually know, but for the people listening, for your candidate interviews, is it local, state, and federal? Is it just local, state? Who all will you be interviewing?
Yeah, so local, state, and federal is usually what we do. The majority of the interviews that we're going to have throughout the county will be for state and some federal elected officials. We don't have a lot of federal officials who are challenged as of yet. So it looks like we'll be passing out endorsements just based on voting records for us. But we do have some seats that are open. But yeah, they're all open. Local, state, and federal. We'll be doing those interviews throughout from now until probably the end of August.
Yeah, so through this process, we have an opportunity to build really good relationships with the leadership, right? And that is a good segue to the next part, which talks about how we're coming up on a change in leadership. So Carol, do you want to speak more to how that is on the horizon here?
So, yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point. The House will be getting a new speaker and the Senate will be getting a new president. We should definitely begin by extending our condolences to current Senate President Kathleen Passidomo on the loss of her husband just last week. Our thoughts and prayers are with her and her family. She is from Steve's area. She's finishing the second year of her term. She has time left in her Senate career generally, and all signs point to her coming back to finish her time. So we'll get to see her in the Senate for a little while longer. Senator Ben Albritton has received the support from his class to become the incoming Senate president, and he will work very closely with Senator Hooper, also Steve from your area. That's sort of been announced. But Senator Albritton has a background in a variety of businesses, agribusiness predominantly, but some construction background again. And so we're excited to have somebody at the helm who definitely understands on any level, what we do and what we bring to the table. And the House, Paul Renner has finished his term from the Jacksonville area. He will be replaced by Representative Danny Perez from Miami-Dade County. He will become currently Speaker Designate. Tremendous relationship with him. We've known him for a while. He's a straight shooter. He, exactly where Speaker Designate Danny Perez is on an issue, but he loves to learn about the issues and work with people. And I'm excited about our relationship there. Same with Senate President Ben Albritton. It's going to be a little bit of a shift in that now we have a legislature that doesn't have the governor running for president, right? And so how our new leadership interacts with somebody who was in a place and is now back to being governor, what does that look like? How does that relationship roll out? We've seen some indications in initial conversations where from Senate President to be Ben Albritton and Speaker Designate Danny Perez, the legislature will be more focused on perhaps their goals than we've seen in the last 2 years. So there's maybe a little friction coming our way, but I'm encouraged that everybody's going to be working together for the continued benefit of Florida.
Yeah, and I think what's amazing, every time you get new leadership, the dynamics change regardless of what happens. But I will tell you that it's going to be a lot more interesting the next 2 years because you have a governor who cannot run for re-election,
Right.
and you'll have a lot of folks posturing to become the next governor of the state of Florida. A lot of them are our friends, so it's going to be a very interesting dynamic.
A lot of them have already started posturing too. I mean, right now it's no quiet rumor that everybody believes First Lady Casey DeSantis runs for governor. We also know or have heard that the entire cabinet may be running, and so that's your Commissioner of Ag, Wilton Simpson, your CFO, Jimmy Petronis, and your Attorney General Ashley Moody. They've all indicated that they're doing something beyond where they are now. Is it running for governor? Is there moving to Congress? What may that be? There's also the rumor that you have people like Congressman Matt Gaetz and Byron Donalds. Will they be coming back? Are they going to throw their hat in the ring? And then every time somebody in a current position with time left in their role enters a race for something else, it's a dynamic shift. There's going to be a ton of movement, people leaving one seat to run for another. In fact, we saw that just this week. Representative Tommy Gregory from your area, he's been appointed. He's now going to be the president of a university. That sets up a new open seat where perhaps we didn't think there was going to be one. And you're going to see a lot of dominoes start to fall. So pay attention, stay close. There's going to be a lot of moving parts.
Yep, for sure.
So all the talk that we're doing about building relationships and the importance of it obviously is, unfortunately, our good looks are not paying for all of that, right?
I think we're all very attractive, but
yeah, I think so too. Yeah, definitely. So I think this is a good opportunity, if you would, to speak about the ABC of Florida PAC and how members who would like to can contribute to it.
Yep. Appreciate the opportunity. And people don't like to talk about it, but it is a part of the process. And if you think about it, as a business endeavor, we are meeting and interviewing people we want to work with to support the industry, and they need our support. And so that's just a cost of their doing business by running for office. It is yet not unique to any political party. Everybody's out there fundraising. Nobody should feel badly about it. But we do need to support our friends, and we need to support our endorsed candidates. The best thing about state level races and your local races is those contributions can be corporate or personal. And so we make it super easy for you. We would love for you to go see abcflorida.com and support our state PAC. Help us support those individuals that really, stick their neck out for you on a daily basis to make sure that Florida continues to be the competitive marketplace it is.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize the amount of work that we get accomplished at ABC with the budget that we have. And, it's the truth that, it does take money to be effective in Tallahassee. It takes money to be effective at local government. And, there's 67 counties, and all of them have elected officials. And we have a state house in Tallahassee that has plenty of people that, if we want the construction industry to be heard, it requires some capital to be able to get our message across. So Carol brought up a good point. You can go to abcflorida.com, contribute on the webpage. There is no limit to the amount a company or an individual can give to our PAC. So
that is true. Good plug, Steve.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if it's $1 or $1 million. We'll take anything at this point to make sure that we can still deliver for the construction industry.
Yes.
Dave, you want to talk about our federal PAC since you have the PAC badge on and it's an ongoing thing in an election year?
Yeah, no, happy to. So we talked, Carol mentioned about the ABC of Florida PAC. There's also ABC National PAC, and that is a PAC that is in place for all federal candidates. It's run by ABC National. All 68 chapters can contribute to that. To learn more, I got to be careful what I say because there are election laws. So to learn more about that, I encourage you to reach out to the chapter, and we can give you more information on how you can support the ABC National PAC.
Well, let's talk about one more event, and I think we have the dates, but we are going to be going to Washington, D.C. every year. All ABC chapters from around the country go to the nation's
LegCon.
capital. The dates are June 25th and 26th, and we invite you to go. The registration is open to go to DC with us this year. It's a great time. We get to meet with all of our elected officials, and considering this is a very high-profile election year, you will see tons of people that you see on Fox News, MSNBC, all of the talk shows will be there to talk to our members, the construction industry, about how they are going to try to fix this country from, number one, the division that we're in right now, but to make this a better place for all of us to be successful and do work. Any thoughts on Washington, D.C., Carol?
I would say that I'm really happy that I work in Tallahassee. I think it's a lot easier to get things done in the state capitals than it is in Washington. But regardless of your cup of tea politically, get into politics or get out of business is what we live and die by, right? Because we know that if we're not engaging with our elected officials at all levels of government, they don't know who we are and they don't know what we care about. So go to these things. Definitely make your issues heard. And just know that in a year where there's a presidential election on the ballot, there's a lot at stake. And take advantage of going to Washington, D.C., meet with the people. We've got a great delegation. And just because D.C. is broken doesn't mean our congressmen and women are. So,
yeah, no, it's a good plug. And
Yeah.
Dave, as a member, you've been to D.C. a bunch of times and Tallahassee. What's the importance for you as a member to take part in those?
So it is by far my
events.
favorite event of the year. It's the most favorite thing that I do in my participation with ABC is going to DC every year. I do encourage all members to go to LegCon. It is a great opportunity to see how the cheese is made, if you will.
Yeah.
Get an opportunity to visit with all the elected officials, see them, walking around town and in the different hallways. But I do think it's even that much more special for those who are members of the 5 Florida chapters, because one of the things that we do as ABC of Florida is, I believe it's going to be on Monday night this year, the 24th. We have our own special ABC of Florida session where all the representatives who represent any district in Florida are going to come together and meet with the members. So while going to DC, you get an opportunity to meet a lot of these elected officials. At this event, it's that much more of an intimate opportunity to do so. And hey, we've had great conversations with many of these elected officials in the past. Rick Scott has come by and chatted with us for a long time. Marco Rubio has in the past. Vern Buchanan,
Greg Stubbe, all of them.
Stubbe, yeah, all of the ones, especially in our chapter area. So I highly encourage, if there's only one event that you do, this is the one. Especially being an election year, it's that much more important.
So, Carol, before we close, any final thoughts about how we are going to move forward with new leadership? How we're going to move forward? How we're going to raise money, what ideas we're going to come up with. Any closing thoughts you have before we start jumping into this?
We need member voices. We need member participation, because what do we know, David, to your point, from going to Washington, D.C., when you all come up for your legislative day in Tallahassee or D.C., the elected officials you meet with are so happy to be talking to people from home or from their district, or who are, living real life situations every day. They thrive on it. And while I love what I do and I think I'm okay at it, at the end of the day, they want to interact with our members. So get engaged, get involved. We need to hear from you. Otherwise, we're going to set an agenda best we can, but it may not have your influence. So take us up on that offer.
Awesome. Well, Carol, it has been an honor to have you back-to-back episodes of Blueprints and Banter. We appreciate everything that you do for the construction industry. The work you do in Tallahassee is second to none, and we appreciate you very, very much. And Dave, anything else you want to add before we close it out?
Really wanted to thank Carol for her time. She's very impressive, especially all the work she does in Tallahassee. ABC of Florida is much better because of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. And with that said, join us at the Trade Winds and join us in DC. If you are willing and able, you can go to ABC of abcflorida.com to register for the convention, and you can go to abc.org to register for the DC trip.
Yeah, and one last thing, if you enjoy this, or even if you don't enjoy this, please share this podcast with other people in your circle so that we can get circulation up. We try to bring important content to our members, and this is a great way for us to do that. So
yes, remember, like and subscribe, and share it with your coworkers. This is a very important thing that we do here. It's one of the most important things we do for the industry, and we appreciate all of you for tuning in. And we'll see you next time on Blueprints and Banter. Take care.
Take care.